Hi everyone, welcome to our new stream. We're going to give everyone a couple of minutes to get into the stream, and then today we are going to be talking about famous frauds, forgetful J's and other facts. So while we wait for everyone to get into the chat, I will type my welcomes message. Hello, I am at the other side. Good to see you again. How are you doing? Hey, Jeroen. Oh, hi, Kamerange. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? Did you have nice weather? It was lovely over here. We sat in the garden and we had a garden picnic, which is always nice. I'm doing really well. We went all the way to the south of the Netherlands yesterday, so we had a whole day of traveling there and back, but it was lovely because we had asperges and it was absolutely lovely. Did you know, by the way, extra fact, did you know that not everyone's urine starts smelling weird after having asparagus? It's just some people can't, their body can't filter out one of the compartments of asparagus, and some people can. Hey, I'm a fan of the cat lady. How are you doing? I don't know if I have another cat fact. You're still eating? Good. It's 8 o'clock. Well, that's okay. Hey, Loki. Oh no, the cat has decided not to come. So Darian's Shadowbane. No, some people's some people's urine doesn't smell worse than normal, I would say, after asparagus, and some people do. They used to call asparagus the nightmaid's nightmare, or the chambermaid's nightmare, because they used to use chamber pots, and then if you had to clean that out, that was a bit of a thing. Oh, did you know that not everyone can smell it? I did not know about that one. How about a donkey fact? Sure. Well, we did have the one the other day where in France they put pants on donkeys. And it turns out they do that in other countries as well, where there are a lot of mosquitoes. They put pants on donkeys so that they don't get bitten by too many insects. And I think that is pretty cute. So, do I have any other interesting... I don't know if I have any other interesting facts. Did you know that there is an animal called a quagga, which looks a bit like it's a mix between a zebra and a donkey, but it is in fact a subspecies of donkey that used to live in South Africa, and then the British government tried to protect it 3 years after it had gone extinct. So it's not really... They just thought that it looked like a donkey, but it wasn't actually one. Oliver, am I imagining things, or is your hair lighter? It might be a bit, but it might be a bit just because of the sun, because we went to Seville in Spain, and then my hair kind of lightens a little bit if I'm in the sun a lot. So in the summer, slightly lighter, and I'm slightly darker. Maybe that's the contrast as well. I blend in with the white walls slightly less in the summer. I think it's camouflage. Because in the winter, I can close my eyes, stand against a white wall, and you wouldn't be able to find me. That is the amount of whiteness. So, I think it's that. I'm also whiter because of summer. You're whiter because of summer? How do you get whiter in the summer? Oh, your hair. Yeah. Yeah, that happens. How was the food in Spain? Oh, it was absolutely amazing. Not a lot of vegetables, a lot of meat, a lot of olives. Really good though. Really lovely. It only sticks all year round. But I think, my darling, those are called grey hairs. And they might be whiter. But I think, did you know, by the way, I'm pretty sure that grey hairs grow faster than your regular hairs. It just means that you have very active hair growth still, if you have a lot of grey hairs. Summer blonde. But also in the winter. Hey, cat. The cat is possibly, maybe, deciding to come join us. Hey, baby, come here. Hey, come here. Hey, cat. No, okay, possibly in a bit. Hey, I'm Trickster. Our lovely moderator is here, and a couple of people in Discord, because I got the new Zelda game, a couple of people in Discord asked if I was going to stream that, and I am Trickster, and I are taking a look at what I need to do for that, because I only have a laptop, and we're not entirely sure if my lovely laptop is able to process the game. So we will keep you updated on that. But we are working on it, but we're not entirely sure yet. Whoa! So I think that's given everybody about 5 minutes to get into the chat. That means that we're going to start. So here we go. So today we are going to be talking about famous frauds, forgetful jays, and other facts. And this does mean that we are, as you can see, talking about our lovely little sea bunny. Chimerian said, I saw you Wednesday. Really? Huh. You'll have to tell me about that later. So first, today we're going to be talking about first our missed chats. So at the end of every stream, we play facts tennis, where you give me a subject and I try to give you back a fact related to that subject. If I miss, then we put them in our missed shots. Then we're going to move on to our animal of the week. This week we're going to be talking about jays, lovely, beautiful birds. Then it is Al-Andalus. We're going to be talking about Andalusia. Then on to famous frauds. And then our story of the week is an involuntary walkathon, or how a German town tricked a bunch of Nazis. Then we're going to play fact tennis. And as our wholesome fact at the very end, we're going to be talking about elephant pacifiers. Then our missed chats. We have 3 today. First, we're going to be talking about Dutch myths for Dominique. Then onto the sea bunny, which is absolutely cute. And on the same scale of cuteness, we are going to be talking about the elephant shrew. First, Dutch myths. So, the one that I chose to talk to you about is the one about the Flying Dutchman, which you might have heard of. So, it's one of the most famous Dutch myths, and the story goes as follows. You have this very stuck-up, rich Dutch trader called Willem van der Decken, and he insists to sail his ship to the East Indies on Good Friday. This is because the spice trade makes a lot of money, and getting there as soon as you can means that there is no time to be lost. His wife protests and says, "Oh, but Willem, you cannot go, because you're supposed to take the day off today. This is a holy day. It is the day of the Lord." His crew protests because the weather is really bad, and it only seems to be getting worse. But Willem does not listen. After a long and arduous journey, the ship reaches the Cape of the Good Hope in South Africa. The crew pleads and begs him, "Please, we have to stop here. It's not safe to go on." When his first mate joins in with this, Willem throws the ship's first mate overboard, and he yells, and I quote, "God or the devil, I shall keep sailing, even if it means I have to keep sailing until Judgment Day." The devil heard this, and he decided to teach him a lesson. The ship went down, and supposedly now sails around the Cape with its sails stained red by the blood of its crew, and it sails there forevermore. So, where does this myth actually come from? Where does it originate? So first you have a Frisian sailor called Barend Fokke, and he sailed to the east in 1678. This trip, which you can see next to me, which is supposed to go around Europe, around Africa, and then onto the West Indies, is supposed to take 6 months of their time. But it supposedly only took him 3 months. This might have been a bit more, but what we do know is that he took a surprisingly short amount of time, Barend. This is when rumours start to circulate about him having a pact with the devil. The British propaganda did the rest. The Brits used the story to show that 1, the Dutch were not men of God, and B, there is no way that they are playing fair. Because in their heads it obviously couldn't be true that the Dutch were better sailors or that they had built a better boat. There must be a different explanation. So, the Flying Dutchman, it was a ship that was doomed to sail around the Cape of Good Hope with blood-stained sails, because the captain and his hubris sailed on the day of the Lord. But actually it was probably just Barend Fokke who was really fast, and the English didn't like that. And then, Sudarian has a fun fact for us. Fun facts, this is also why bike lanes in Amsterdam are red. They are stained red with the blood of unwary tourists. That is also a very good Dutch myth. Because people in Amsterdam, they don't stop at all. Then on to our second mischat. This one is about the sea bunny, or the Joruna parva. This is a very cute looking little sea snail. And it looks lovely and fluffy. But what are those little fluffy spikes that you can see? Its fur-like coat is actually bunches of tiny little rods, and they're called Cariophilidia. They're arranged with a couple of little knobs at the end that are sometimes black, and this gives the sea bunny its little speckled appearance. But scientists aren't entirely sure what these rods specifically do. They say that they probably play a role in sensory perception for the sea bunnies. But the sea bunny's ears, those 2 little antennae that you can see sticking up, those are definitely sensory organs. They're called rhinophores, and they detect chemicals in the water, and this helps the sea bunny to find food and also to find its mate. These cute little sea slugs are incredibly toxic, especially so that other predators don't eat them, because their only defense besides being cute is being very, very toxic. Likewise, it is not a good idea to pet them, because you'll just be interfering with those sensory organs. And let's be honest, they might look fuzzy, but they are not really fuzzy. So no bunny petting satisfaction here, sadly. Part of the reason that you cannot have this sea bunny as a pet is because they only live for a couple of months to maybe a year. And because of this, it's not very satisfying to have them as a pet in your aquarium. And because they're poisonous, it's also a really bad idea for the rest of the fish you might have in your seawater tank. And in addition to the fact that they are poisonous and they have a very short lifespan, they're also teeny tiny. They're only about 2.5 centimeters, which means that you can't really see them that well anyway. So it might be best to just enjoy the sea bunny on YouTube videos. So the sea bunny, or the Joruna parva, it is a little sea snail with almost fur on it, and it is entirely too cute. And Jeroen asks, do they have eyes? No, they don't have eyes per se, and this is why they think that those sensory organs that look like the fur are used to feel out around it. But they don't have actual eyes like we do. I'm at the other side says, weren't the first bikes dangerous. Oh, wait. Siderian Shadowbane says also, the first bikes actually didn't have any brakes. I think they were called penny farthings, and you had to lean them against a lamp post or a wall to get off them. True. So they didn't have brakes in the way that we know them, but because your pedals were attached directly to the wheel, you could kind of stop them by just stopping the pedaling, which is a form of a brake, I guess. But yes, a lot of people fell off them pretty hard. And they were pretty dangerous. And then with that, we're going to go on to our last missed shot. This one is about the elephant shrew, and this one is for I'm at the Other Side. So these are a couple of elephant shrews. You have about 17 species that live, and these are just a couple of them here next to me. They are one of the fastest small mammals. They have been recorded at speeds of up to 28.8 kilometers an hour, which is insanely fast for the tiny little thing that it is. Compared to other mammalian animals that eat insects, they also have very large brains. This leads us to believe that they might be pretty intelligent. You have the checkered elephant shrew, which is the top one right at the top there. They live in pairs or in small little groups, and they mate for life. The pair will defend their shared territory individually, wrapping their tail or feet on the ground to alert the other members. But are they in fact rodents? Elephant shrews are often compared to mice, but they are not in fact rodents. They might look like gerbils or mice because of their shape, but they aren't rodents, nor in fact are they actually shrew. They're more similar to tenrecs or moles. The name elephant in elephant shrew is because of that long little snout they have, where people thought that it looks quite a lot like an elephant. But they might have had a point when they named them the elephant shrew, but not that much in the shrew part, but perhaps in the elephant part, because phylogenetic analysis has turned out that elephant shrews are in fact more closely related to elephants than they are to shrews. So the elephant shrew, it is in fact more like an elephant than it is like a shrew, but it might be slightly on its own little category altogether. Then we're going to go on to the animal of the week. And I'm at the Other Side says, yes, look how cute. They are dangerously cute. Then we're going to be talking about our animal of the week. And this week we're talking about the jay. So on the picture next to me, you can see that you have a whole bunch of different kinds of jay, different species of jay. And the first one we're going to be talking about are jays and oaks. Then what kind of defense strategies do jays use? And then on to jays and how intelligent they are. So first, we're going to be talking about the Eurasian jay. Eurasian jays have a very different diet in winter than they have in summer. The bird switches from mainly insects and sometimes young birds to nuts and berries in the winter. For this to work, the jay has to start hiding acorns all around him in autumn, so that he has them for winter. So if we take a look at its name, Corvus glandarius, that means the crow of the oak. And this is because it is part of the corvid family, where we know our crows from. The jay, luckily for the oak tree, he does eat a lot of acorns, but he also is quite a forgetful bird, which means that he doesn't have a great memory. Whenever the jay forgets part of its stash of acorns, the oak has a chance to start growing another tree. So it's fair to say that forests arrive where jays forget. And then I'm going to give you a little extra fact about specifically the blue jay. And in the Eurasian jay, it's the little feathers that you can see up here. So up here, the top left picture with the pinkish bird with the little blue stripe, that is the Eurasian jay. And this blue one, that is the blue jay. But did you know that the pigment that it uses is in fact brown? So melanin, that's the pigment that it uses, is the same pigment found in human hair and skin. It's brown, and it's the same pigments that you can find in the blue jay's feathers. So then why do they appear blue? Bird coloration can be produced in a number of ways, one of which is the pigmentation, but another one is called refraction, which has to do with how the feathers scatter the light. In this, you can see it in the picture above. The sun ray hits it and the feather absorbs all other colors of light except for that of blue, and that bounces off, and that is why we can see them as blue. But because they aren't actually blue, you can try this at home. If you ever find a feather, you have to backlight it and then look at it, and then you will see that it is in fact brown and not blue. So our crow of the oak, he finds a lot of acorns for him to eat during the winter, but thankfully he does not eat them all because he is kind of forgetful and forgets where he stashes them, but that grows new oaks for him. And then Sir Dario Shadowmane says, fun extra facts. The same applies to the kingfisher. Its feathers are also brown and not blue. Yes, same refraction. Then, on to our last fact about the jays. This is about their defense tactics. Whenever a Eurasian jay is under threat, they start to make a whole bunch of noise. This is why the bird is also called the shouting magpie. So what is the tactic here? 1. With the noise, the jay is trying to warn other birds around him in the hopes that the other birds will do the dirty work and scare away whatever kind of predator or scary thing is there. And 2, the jay will use his very good impersonating skills. And he likes to either impersonate birds that are dangerous to the invader. For instance, when a sparrowhawk invades the territory, that is a smaller bird, then the Eurasian jay might impersonate a goshawk, which is an even larger bird that will scare away the sparrowhawk. Another example of impersonating, if a red-tailed hawk flies over the territory and makes a dive, the Eurasian jay will start to mimic this behavior. It will copy what it sees and hears, but scientists aren't entirely sure why it also does like the flying, but it might be because it's trying to fool other birds into thinking that a hawk is coming so that they fly away and leave their food, and then the jay can go and eat their food. So we're going to watch a little video of a Eurasian jay impersonating a hawk. Those are hawk sounds and not jay sounds. Jays sound more like crows. That's a pretty good hawk, I think. So, the defense mechanism, they shout to warn other birds, but they can also impersonate a lot of other birds. They use this to steal their food or to scare them away. Then, we're going to be talking about jay intelligence. So first we're going to be talking about tool use, because a lot of corvids like crows and ravens have been shown to use tools like twigs and stuff like that in the wild. But the jay family is less prone to using tools in the wild, but that is until you put them into captivity. This was accidentally discovered when a blue jay was put in a cage and its owner put food pellets outside of the cage. And they walked away, and then they heard a ripping noise, and it turned out that the jay had rolled up a piece of paper and shredded it, rolled it up, and was pulling the pellets towards its cage. And you can see that happening right next to me. Next to me you can see the jay, and he has rolled up a piece of paper and is pulling the pellets towards him. And this is tool use in Eurasian jays. And then we're going to be talking about kind of an intelligence test for jays that they did. And this is a version of the marshmallow tests, but then for birds. The old saying states that one bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, but it appears that Eurasian jays might beg to differ. Researchers have found that these birds will not take an immediate reward, but wait for a delayed but better reward. What's more, they showed that the birds that have the highest amount of self-control when waiting for the delayed but better treat are the ones that also score higher on a variety of cognitive tests. So this means that patience is indeed a virtue. The birds that were willing to wait longer turned out to be smarter. So how did they set up this experiment? They have, you can see the setup right next to me. They had a person and they had an array of boxes. And in those boxes, they would put different treats. And then they had symbols on the boxes, and the symbols were related to the treats and how long you had to wait for them. They taught them the symbols and they taught them the treats. One drawer offered an immediate and available treat. Another was only available after a delay, but the third one had a treat in it but would never open. The birds were taught that once they chose a treat, the other two options were taken away. And then they explored if the bird chose the better treat but waiting, and how long they were willing to wait. This is kind of like the marshmallow test in children, where you take a toddler, you give them one marshmallow and you say, if you wait until I come back and you have not eaten this marshmallow, I will give you another one. And then you can have two. So you can either have one now or wait for 10 minutes and then have two. And they did the same thing with the jays and the boxes. The results of the study revealed that while the birds varied in how long they were prepared to wait, none of the jays wanted to eat the immediate stack. So all of them waited, but it was just a difference in how long they wanted to wait. But it did seem that the longer the wait was, the more difficult the jays found the waiting. Other birds, like pigeons, have previously passed versions of this marshmallow test. But this latest study has not only done the marshmallow test with them, but has also coupled that to a variety of different cognitive tests, showing that the birds that wait the longest also score higher on different cognitive tests. So, jays, they might not use a lot of tools in the wild, but they are able to score highly on the marshmallow test, and they can use them in captivity. And that was our last fact about jays. Then we're going to go on to our next thing, which is choosing our next animal of the week. This week you can choose between kangaroo, king cobra, or killer whale. That means that I have to go here and start the poll. So if you look in the top corner in the chat, you will see next animal of the week, and you can click on the little triangle down. And then we have one vote for the king cobra and one for the killer whale. So, which one do you want? I'm at the other side says I still want to see killer whales in the wild. Yes, that would be very cool, but not from too close, because they seem entirely too intelligent. They seem quite terrifying. But I would like to see them in the wild from a boat. Killer whale has 3 and king cobra has 2. Also, king cobras look pretty cool. And kangaroos are way bigger than you think. If you see them in real life, they are huge and so muscled. Oliver says, there's a bunch where I am. I see them all the time. Really? Oh, if you've taken any pictures, put them in the Discord. I'd love to see that. That seems amazing. Have you got stories about the killer whales attacking things, finding things, doing interesting things there. Yeah, where is that? If you want to say in the chat. You can also share it on the Discord if you want to share it there. Oh, kangaroo is getting no love, but we do have 3 votes for killer whale, 2 for king cobra. We shall see who comes out on top. Oh, it was when you were around Seattle. Never taken a picture. Too bad. Oh, killer whale is nudging ahead 4 votes. They migrate through where you are now. Okay, cool. Oh, king cobra inching back with 1 more vote. I think killer whales are amazingly interesting. I'm not entirely sure where their migration route lies all around. Kangaroos, not that much of a migrator. Tend to stick around. Cobras, I'm also not sure if you get them in all the continents. I'd say Africa. I'd say Asia. Not sure about the rest. I'm not entirely sure if you have American cobras. I'm not sure if we're going to find out either. If we have a tie, we'll just do both, as we have done before. If you have any requests for any facts or any subjects that you would like me to do, then you can put that in our Discord in fact suggestions, and then I will get to them from there. I'm at the other side. Wants a random fact. Sure. Did you know that when a lady is pregnant and she gets some kind of organ failure, or something happens to her, if she has organ damage, then the baby in the wombs, in her womb, cells stem cells to repair the damage. So babies actually help their mothers while in their womb to repair their cells with stem cells from their babies. So that's your random fact. Oliver says, I just looked it up. There were apparently 1,200 sightings near that area last year. So not super rare. Nope, that seems like quite a few. I had no idea they were that prevalent there. But that's an amazing thing. Thank you very much. Oh, I think killer whale is nudging this one out. We have 4 votes for killer whale and 3 for king cobra. So if you want to nudge it the other way, this is your time, because I think the time is running out. All of these are good animals though. Kangaroos getting no love, but kangaroos also. Just the fact that they call their babies Joeys, that is just cute. Absolutely adorable. Even though they're way more buff. Yes, killer whale has won with 4 votes to 3, just nudging out the king cobra. Which means that next week we're going to be talking about our killer whale as our animal of the week. Then we're going to go on to our next subject. This week we're going to be talking about everything Al-Andalus, or everything about Andalusia, because that is where we went on vacation last week. First, we're going to be talking about a medieval influencer, then about the Hispa market rules and exactly how the language has changed because of the Moors. First, our medieval influencer. So what you have to know, I'll go one back. What you have to know about Andalusia is that this is the region that was taken over by the Moors for about 700 years, and the Moors were Islamic. So there are a lot of Arabic and Islamic influences in Andalusia. One of those is the person we're going to be talking about now, our medieval influencer. His name was Abu il-Hasan Ali ibn Nafi. Hopefully I said that right. And he is a musician, or mainly a musician, who grew up in Baghdad and became famous when he moved to Andalusia in modern-day Spain. His nickname, Zariab, or Miro in Spanish, comes from the word for blackbird. According to himself, he gets this nickname because his singing was so melodious and beautiful as that of the blackbird. According to others, it might just have been because he was a musician and he was black. So, why did he go to Spain? He went there to literally be an influencer. The Caliph, or the leader, wanted him to change the barbaric Spanish culture for the better. And who better to do this than Zaryeb, who, according to himself, was an expert astronomer, geographer, meteorologist, cook, fashionista, and of course, musician. One of the things that he did was cosmetic. He went to the court in Cordoba and he asked the court for a dead eagle. The courtiers frowned a bit about this, but they sent for the falconer nonetheless. When he got his dead eagle, he fashioned picks or lute picks from the quills and from its beak. Now he could impress everyone. No more wooden picks for him. When he went out to play, he sometimes forgot to tell them that somebody else had caught this eagle for him, which made everyone even more impressed with his lute playing. You can see him sitting right there. That is Zaryeb, or the blackbird, sitting and playing his lute. He is said to have influenced a whole bunch of things. It is said that he created a new type of deodorant to get rid of bad odors. And he also promoted morning and evening baths and emphasized the maintenance of personal hygiene. Zaryeb was thought to have invented an early version of toothpaste, which he popularized through the Islamic Iberia. The exact ingredients of this toothpaste are currently unknown, but they were reported to have been both functional and pleasant to the taste. So, our Zaryeb, or our blackbird musician, he was the medieval influencer that came from the Moors to give our barbaric Spanish people a better upbringing. Then, onto our second one. This is about the Hispa market rules. In Andalusia, you had this principle that was taken there by the Islamic Moors of convivencia. Convivencia is a term that we've put on there later, but this just describes the theory of living they had. Muslims, Jews, and Christians all lived there together, in a semblance at least of harmony. As long as everyone paid their taxes and behaved properly, everyone was allowed to live in this area. To make sure that this system was clear, the rulers set up the Hispa, or the regulation, market rules. These rules were focused on keeping the following principles: fair pricing, high product quality, keeping public order, good relations between groups, and a high level of public decency. Examples of these regulations are that women were not allowed to sell brocade. And brocade is that intricate fabric that you see, the red and gold. And also, you were not allowed to sell truffles outside of the mosque. Then you were not allowed to mix flour with your cheese, and there was strictly forbidden to sell any tame pigeons. Now, up to you in the chat to think of what were the reasons for these rules. So, my question to you is, why were women not allowed to sell fancy fabrics? And why were you not allowed to sell truffles outside of the mosque? Also, why were you not allowed to mix flour with your cheese? And why on earth would you not be allowed to sell tame pigeons? So, type your answers in the chat while I read what Sir Darian Shadowbane has typed. I highly recommend looking at the wiki that Zaryeb has. True. It almost seems like he invented everything. He probably claimed some stuff that other people developed. Yes, and this is a thing that we see throughout history more often, where you have a number of people doing a number of things or a number of inventions, and then people all contribute that to one person. The same goes for people like King Arthur of the Round Table, or possibly Robin Hood. Oh, Living Legend says truffles might attract pigs and they are seen as haram in the Islamic law. that is your guess. That is a very good guess. So, does anyone else have any ideas in the chat? Why would you not be able to mix flour with your cheese? Or sell fancy fabrics as a lady? I'm at the other side, says my brain does not respond today. Oliver says, they didn't want smelly cheese. That is a very good guess. It kind of has to do with that. So, while you type your guesses for the other ones, I'm going to talk about the two that Sudarian and Oliver said. Or Living Legend and Oliver said. So, Living Legend, the truffles outside of the mosque does actually have to do with the fact that truffles are found by pigs and they are haram. But they were also thought to therefore be a delicacy of the dissolute, which means that the people who didn't care about it being haram would eat it, and they would have wild and raucous parties outside of the mosque, and it was supposed to be a quiet and solemn place. So you are not allowed to eat treats there. Then flour mixing with the cheese. Oliver, they actually didn't want it because of the quality control. So if you take good cheese and you mix it with flour, you're kind of adulterating it and you're not getting pure cheese. So they wanted you to have pure cheese, unadulterated with other, because flour is a lot cheaper than cheese. Then Sudarian Shadowmane says, pigeons might spread diseases, so there are lots of people living in Sevilla, so disease could spread quickly. That is a very good guess. What is mixing cheese and flour anyway? So just flour that you would use to make bread. If you're a cheesemaker and before cheese becomes hard and solidified, it's kind of spongy and wetter. And if you put flour in it, then it thickens it up faster and it makes part of the cheese be flour and not just cheese. So then you're kind of cutting it with cheaper stuff. That is a very good guess, Sudarian. But it was in fact because the pigeons were used for betting and gambling, and that's why you weren't allowed to have them. And also because of peeping toms, because men had the coops for the pigeons up on top of the roofs. And anyone who has ever played Assassin's Creed knows that in some of the games they have the pigeon places, coops, on top of roofs, and it was said that men would climb up to their roofs and peek at their neighbours' wives from there. Ah, yes, so fake cheese, exactly. And then the last one, women selling fancy fabrics or brocade. This was because they were not allowed to compete with the men who were supposed to sell this. And if you sold such fancy, luxurious things as a lady, you must be a harlot. So, no brocade for you. Women aren't supposed to sell brocade because that is for harlots, and also the men are supposed to sell that. Then no truffles outside of a mosque because they are found by pigs, they are haram, and it's supposed to be a quiet and good place in front of the mosque. Then no mixing your flour with your cheese because that is giving you fake cheese. Then no selling tame pigeons because they are used in betting and in peeping toms. Oliver says, did you visit while you were there? This is all close to Seville, right? Yes. So we visited just slightly up north, and we went to Huelva, which is a beautiful place as well. But that's closer to the coast. Then our last Al-Andalusia fact is about the names. You can see a lot of Muslim influences in the topography names of the country. Two examples of these are Gibraltar and Madrid. Gibraltar comes from a Jabal or mountain, Al-Tariq, or the mountain of Tariq, and this is the warrior who conquered Andalusia. And then that is the first invader in 711. And then you also have Madrid, which comes from Maj, Rit. Maj meaning water and Rit meaning holy. So the holy spring. and it's named after a very welcome source of water that the invaders found in the middle of the country. Then, apart from that, we have a whole bunch of English words that come originally through Spain from Arabic or from Arabic directly. One of these is the Spanish word azúcar, and it has its origin in the Arabic name al-sukar, which is the English for sugar. So al-sukar, azúcar, sugar. So we have literally our sugar and spice. And also we have another one. This one is limon, which comes from the Arabic word laymun, and that also became lemon in English. So a whole bunch of Arabic words like coffee and algebra, Gibraltar and Madrid, they all come from the Moorish influences through Spain. Let me see. Living Legend says, yes, we actually stayed next to the old marketplace of Sevilla. We did. It was absolutely beautiful. And with that, we're going to go on to our next batch of facts. This one is about famous frauds. First, we're going to be talking about how dirtying paper can earn you billions. Then, bribing the operator and how that was one of the very first telecommunication scams. Then, promising a large estate. One of the first and greatest scams in America. With that, first, we're going to be talking about dirtying the paper. This one is about Bernie Madoff, who you might have heard of. Bernie Madoff got arrested for the biggest Ponzi scheme ever in 2008. This is what the Ponzi scheme was. First, the organizer asks the investor for money and promises very high returns with little to no risk. Then, once they have the money, then first they create a delay so that the investor has to wait for their returns. And then, with that money of the first investor, he then pays off the old investor and then circles on to build up a whole bunch of new ones. To keep this Ponzi scheme a secret, he had a whole floor in his building dedicated to creating false statements. His right-hand man, who was called Frank Di Pascali, who really looked like a mobster, was the leader of this floor and was famous for thinking on his feet very quickly. One of the most clear examples of this was the moment when one of Madoff's clients actually sent a real accountant to the building to get hard proof of these specific transactions taking place. Of course, these transactions had never taken place because Madoff faked everything. So, what did Di Pascali do? He asked the client to just wait in the lobby a couple of minutes while he looked it up, and he legs it upstairs to the printer. He quickly just makes up details of these transactions and prints a very real-looking ledger. But then he realized that there was in fact a problem. These transactions should have been taken place years ago. This meant that the paper couldn't, one, be brand new, and also it couldn't be as clean as it was, and three, it definitely could not still be hot off the printer. So he called his staff. Everybody had to stop what they were doing and help him immediately. And how did they do this? First, they smudged the edges of the paper with thumbprints, and then they licked the corners, make some folds in them, dropped the whole stack of papers on the floor, and then eventually they put them in the fridge to cool down the heat from the printing process. After a few minutes of frantically aging and cooling the papers, he took them down to the client. And did this work? Yes, the client never asked questions again, and it took until a whole lot later before Bernie Madoff was caught. So, dirtying the paper actually paid Bernie Madoff millions because he wasn't caught in his Ponzi scheme scam. Then on to our next one. This was about bribing the operator, and this one was in fact not yet illegal. So this one is about two brothers, Francois and Joseph Blanc, in the 1830s. They lived in Bordeaux, and they traded government bonds. The value of these bonds was heavily influenced by what was happening in Paris, which was quite an unstable city at the time. So, how did they profit from this instability? Most communication between Bordeaux and Paris, which was 600 kilometers to the north, went by optical telegraph. The system was run by multiple operators along the way who used large wooden signaling posts to send messages along the way. And you can see that right next to me there. This is like a building with two arms on it, and you can move the arms in different ways. And then they would have different towers spaced along those 600 kilometers. And this was how they could get a message there in only a couple of hours, or even less than that. And Sidarian Shadowbane is asking, what is this? Are you teaching us how to scam people now? How highly unethical. Well, as you might find out, this one might not have been illegal. How did they do this with these multiple operators? How do they make sure that they profit from this? What the Blanc brothers did was simple. They just bribed the operators of these towers to relay the messages about the situation in Paris quickly to them, but with a delay to others. This way they had inside information that their competitors didn't have. So, did they get caught and arrested for this very first telecommunications fraud? No, because this was in fact not ethical, but it was not yet illegal, because lawmakers didn't know enough about telecommunications to quickly whip up a law against it. It took some years before this type of fraud was illegal in France, which means that the first case of telecommunications fraud, 1, was not technically illegal, and 2, happened before the invention of the telephone. And then on to our very last famous fraud. This is a huge one, and it is promising a large estate. This one was done by Oscar Hartzell, who was caught in 1919. Oscar Hartzell was behind one of the most enterprising frauds, and it was referred to as the Sir Francis Drake estate fraud. The scam targeted people with the surname Drake. Ironically, he developed this scam after another scammer had tried to do the scam on him. And then he thought, you didn't get me, but I might be able to do this better. The scam was based around the estate of Sir Francis Drake, who supposedly had never paid it out, and it was in hands of the British government. Herzl began searching for people with the surname Drake in Iowa in 1919 and informed them that, as a distant relative, they potentially had a claim to the Sir Drake's estate. He was allegedly preparing a lawsuit to force the British government to release the estate. He was asking only for a small investment, where he promised the returns of 500 to 1. The Drakes fell about themselves to be a part of this scheme, so much so that the scheme extended from Iowa all across the US. Hartzell moved to London with his ill-begotten gains to live in luxury until 1924. And he even hired salespeople to continue to get the funds from other Drakes across the United States. He was eventually arrested and convicted of fraud in 1938, so 10 years later. No one knows exactly how much he defrauded, but he continued to collect an additional $500,000 while he was still in prison. So, promising a large estate, the Sir Francis Drake estate fraud, nobody knows exactly how much money Oscar Hartzell made, but it must have been in the millions. And then we shall read what we have in the chat. I'm Trickster is taking notes, no scamming. Hey, the creepy ape is back. Welcome back. It's lovely to have you. And you have a fact for us. George C. Parker was a famous con man who sold the Brooklyn Bridge to several people. Yes, I love this one. Parker would scout out marks who'd recently arrived in New York City, convince them that he owned the Brooklyn Bridge, and sell it to these eager investors for as much as $50,000. He charmed his victims into thinking that they would easily profit by charging people for access to the bridge. This is amazing. No, what? Shadarian Shadowbane says, I am Trickster can put his blame on me? No, none of that. Hey, Creepy Ape. And according to Living Legend, this is a very good addition to our unethical stream. So, then we're going to go on to our... First, we're going to go... I'll explain Fact Tennis, and then after Fact Tennis, we are going to go on to our story of the week. For Fact Tennis, we play as follows. First, you serve, so you suggest a subject for me in the chat. Then I return by seeing if off the top of my head I know an interesting fact about or adjacent to your subject. Then if I miss any shots, if I don't know any facts, then we will put them in our missed shots at the start of the next stream. So please put all of your suggestions of subjects in the chat while I tell you about our story of the week. Oh, I'm at the other side as the first one with a sugar glider. Then, our story of the week, the involuntary walkathon, or how a German town tricked a bunch of Nazis. This German town tricked a bunch of Nazis into raising thousands of euros for anti-extremist charity group. Far-right extremists inadvertently take part in a walkathon to raise money for a group that helps right-wingers to escape extremism. Neo-Nazis gathered in a small German town found themselves the target of an anti-fascist prank this every year when they inadvertently raised 10,000 euros for an anti-extremist organization. This was about 8 years ago that this happened, by the way. For decades, far-right extremists have marched through Wunsiedel in Bavaria every year, to the despair of those who live there. This year, one of the organizers of Rechts gegen Rechts, or Right Against Right, took a different approach than picketing them. Without the march's knowledge, local residents and business owners had sponsored the 250 participants of the march on what was dubbed Germany's most involuntary walkathon. For every meter that the Nazis marched, $10 went into a program called Exit Deutschland, which helps people to escape extremist groups. Campaigners hung funny posters to make the march look even more like a sporting event. They spray painted "Start" at the beginning of the walk and "Almost there" halfway. They have slogans, as you can see on the banner, which says "Wenn das der Führer wüsste," or "If only the Führer knew." And they had tables with bananas on them, with "Mein Mampf" above them, or "My Munchies." They even hung a sign at the end thanking their marchers for their donations. Neo-Nazis are attracted to this town because Hitler's deputy Rudolf Hess was once buried there, though his remains were exhumed in 2011 and his grave was destroyed. Far-right extremists still flock to this town year after year. Residents had attempted protests and numerous legal complaints to no avail. Wunsiedel is still treated as a place of pilgrimage for neo-Nazis all over Europe. So, Rechts gegen Rechts organizers Fabian Wichmann said that he wanted to show what else you can do, what other courses of actions you have. You can do more than just block the streets or close the shutters. So this funny prank on the Nazis has inspired others because in America there is a GoFundMe campaign where you can adopt a Nazi or give an amount of money to fight Nazis in a humorous way. So the involuntary walkathon is where a German city tricked a bunch of Nazis into raising a whole lot of money for an anti-extremist group. And then we're going to play fact tennis. Let us see. And I'm very much going to try not to skip. I am at the other sides. Fact tennis fact. Let me see. Fact tennis about the sugar glider. Sure. Did you know that? Let's see. Sugar gliders, they are, I think they're a kind of squirrel. People keep them as pets. They're pretty cute. I don't actually know that much more about them. I'll have to come back to that one. Then, Sudarian wants a fact tennis about Betis Sevilla. Betis is one of the football clubs in Sevilla, Spain, and they have said, it is said that they have the most insane supporters. So one lovely story about Betis is that they have a goat as a mascot. And the story goes as follows. There was a farmer trying to sell his goats on the market, but he just wasn't able to get rid of this last goat on time. And he had to go to the game, so there was no time to go pack up the goat. So he decided that the goat must come along. So he took the goat to the stadium, got a flag, a Betis flag off somebody, knotted it around the goat, and told the porter, well, the goat has to come in with me because he is the Betis mascot. Look at its blanket. And the person at the gate went, that seems absolutely fine to me, and let the supporter take the goat with him into the stands. So the supporter watched the game with the goat on the stands. And that is the story of the Betis goat. Then I'm a fan of the cat lady. Tennis for an octopus fact. Sure. Did you know that? Did you know that octopuses, while they are very intelligent and very good at solving puzzles, did you know that they in fact don't have that much of a long-term memory? So every time that you give them a puzzle again, and usually this involves a jar with a treat in it and them taking the lid off the jar, did you know that they have to figure it out all over again every single time? And they also have 3 hearts and blue blood. Then, living legend, fact tennis about cycling. Sure, did you know that you used to have people on bikes that were called giraffe bikes that were entirely huge, and they used to cycle around London and light the street lights, the street lamps with them. And some of them would also be what you would call a knocker-upper. And a knocker-upper was somebody who would cycle up to your window and knock on it with a stick whenever you were supposed to wake up. So instead of an alarm clock, you would have a man on a very tall bicycle cycling around London, waking everybody up. And then another fact tennis I'm trickster about typewriters. Sure. Did you know that it is because of typewriters that we have the QWERTY sequence of letters on our keyboards? It's because typewriters used to fire them up from backwards, and this was the arrangement of where they didn't get stuck because you'd hit 2 at the same time. Don't know if I have another very interesting typewriter fact. I think we'll have to do sugar glider and typewriter facts again. Are there any other facts for fact tennis? Have I missed any? I don't think so. Then we're going to go on to our very last fact of the stream. This one is our wholesome fact. And after our wholesome fact, we are going to try to raid a different channel. Let's see. Our very last wholesome fact. So, did you know that baby elephants... did you know that baby elephants suck their trunks as a pacifier? So the same way that a human toddler would suck their thumb to calm themselves down, a baby elephant will suck its trunk. I'm at the other side, so normally you miss my fact this time. I just don't know a fact about your subject. So, whoops, my bad. Let's see. Oh, I'll just give you an extra fact just because I absolutely love this. Did you know that during the Spanish Civil War, Sevilla actually airdropped supplies into the Santuario de Nustra, which was like a sanctuarium where people were fighting against the Spanish government, and they dropped supplies into there, not attached to parachutes, but attached to live turkeys, so that the live turkeys could flap their wings all the way down, and that way the goods didn't splat open on the ground, because turkeys can't really fly that much, as they can kind of get a little bit of airlift off, but it turns out it's just enough to work like a little parachute. So Darian says, an uncommon level of form today. Almost no missed shots and no missed factness. Yes. I'm doing very well. So with that was our very last fact of the stream, which means that I'm going to say thank you for joining us for another stream today. We will have our next stream next week on Sunday at 8. And remember, everything is interesting if you look at it closely enough. And then we have one last fact. I lied. We do have one last fact from the Creepy Ape. And then we're going to go raid a different channel. Creepy Ape says, ever heard of the world's smallest skyscraper that is in Texas? Built in the 1920s, a con man convinced people to invest $200,000 in the building. The result was that a 4-story building of 40 foot, it turned out that in its blueprint he had included the height of 480 inches and not 480 foot, so he had a successful defense in court. Is it still a skyscraper if it doesn't scrape the sky? That is a very good question, Sidarian Shadowbane. I am not entirely sure. If you still want to share any interesting facts that you have, or just want to chat, you can join our Discord, and then I will either see you there or in our next raid. Let's see, who shall we raid? Let's see who we can raid. Nobody's on except Canara? We can go raid Canara, who is just chatting with a bunch of people. So, I think we shall go and raid her. I will see you over there. Bye for now. See you next week on Sunday. Bye.